Hi, viewers. Welcome to another brand new episode. Today, we have a former student of Chalmers University with us. He studied and secured a job in Sweden. A lot of questions are being asked about the study and work life in Sweden. Hope you'll get some answers. So, let's go meet him. Hi, Biju. Welcome to this interview. How are you feeling today?
It's I've been really good. It's a very nice day, and I would like the summer experience in Sweden is really good, and I hope the interview today will or experience give a lot of ideas to people who want to come to Sweden. It's a very nice country, and I would hope that they can get some guidance from you.
Yes, Biju, the weather is lovely. So, can you please give us an intro about yourself?
Okay. So to talk about myself, so I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering in India. So then after doing my bachelor's, I wanted to get some experience. So I worked in India for 2 years in a startup company. It was not a big flourish company. But then I wanted to go for masters abroad, and then came to know through some of my friends that Sweden had some good universities, and especially since I'm an electrical engineer, my area of interest was in electrical. So I wanted to do more. So then the natural courses which I could opt for was electrical power engineering or electric drives and so on. And then Chalmers in Sweden here happened to have this course which is called electric power engineering, which has both electrical systems, power systems as well as electric drives. So it gives you a wide opening. You do either power system related job or to do something in drives, which is like building electric cars or so and so. So basically I came here to do electrical power engineering in Chalmers. So that was a 2 year course. So the requirements to get into this university was not that complicated. It was basically your mark scores, your letter of recommendations, and more of your work experience and all those things. So when you apply with that, they shortlist based on these things. And then finally they give you a no-go or go whether you're selected to the university or not. And then I came here for like 2 years or 4 years back. Then I did my master's here in electric power engineering. It was really interesting. It's much different from how it is in India, because we do more of theoretical learning in India, and when it comes to Sweden, it's more practical learning. So it's much more informative, I would say. So then I did my master's here. Then when it comes to getting job and other stuffs, it was like it's a little tough, because it's not like you don't have any placements like how you get in India. So you need to search on your own with the what you've studied and what experience you've gained through the years. And then based on that, you apply for different companies when they're opening position through online. And then once they select you, they will call you for multiple rounds of interviews and stuff. So I got into some interview with a consultant company first. So they offered me a job in Volvo Cars as a 1 year term. So I joined in that company, and I started in Volvo Cars as a consultant for 1 year. So I worked there 1 year, and then after 1 year, the company Volvo Cars was more interested in me, and they felt that I could be more useful there. So then they converted me from a consultant towards a permanent employee, and currently I'm a permanent employee for 1.5 years now. That's my journey till now in Sweden.
In very brief words, can you please explain how a student can apply for master's degree in Chalmers University?
To apply a master's course in Chalmers or basically in Sweden is not as complicated as you apply for US or Canada or any other country for this matter. Apparently, they've made it very simple. So they have a common website called SI, which is swedishinstitute.se, which is the basic website for all the universities in Sweden. So they're all interlinked into one website. So all the admission process has to go through this website called Swedish Institute. So what they do is basically you create a profile in that. So you write in all the details of you, for example, where you are from, what you do, what is your bachelor's, and all those things. And then you have all the list of all the universities there with the different courses they have. And then the basic thing you have to do is you have to go through each university's website to know which course is interesting for you, and look at the prerequisites mainly, because every course has a certain prerequisite. If you fail in that, you can apply, but then you will end up getting rejected because your prerequisites did not match the course. So you look into the university profile website, and you clearly look at what the prerequisites for your specific courses, and then you can apply for multiple universities in that website. So Sweden gives you the opportunity to just submit document once, but you can apply to 5 to 6 universities at the same time. Even for 10 courses, they're not going to have any problems with that. So it's very simple. You just need to have some documents like something called as letter of recommendation, which preferably you need to get from a PhD professor in your university who you have worked under. So it's much easier for someone who you've been with to give a good recommendation letter than someone you've not been, but he's part of your university. So always remember to get a good letter of recommendation from two university professors, actually, not one. So you need to get from two people, and then they should have it written and signed in the letterhead of the university. And then you have something called SOP, which is Statement of Purpose. So this is a small, brief letter of one page, which the applicant has to write on his own, saying that, okay, who are you? Why do you want to apply to the specific course, and why the specific university? So you need to be more elaborate in saying, okay, this is my passion, this is how I want to go for, and this university has given me these opportunities, and I feel that I will be more comfortable here. So it's a general letter, but it's a very important one because they read through it, and that should be very limited. It's only one page, not more than a page. And then you need to have, if you work somewhere after your bachelor's, then you need to even get a letter of recommendation or work experience letter, so called. It will help you because if you have work experience, the Swedish institutes or the universities here, they give you a little bit more importance. So if you have that, it's well and good. If you don't have, it's not a problem. You can still get university admissions, don't worry. So that is the basic application process, and then you need to even have your common documents like your passport and everything. It's all digitally uploaded into this thing, and more specifically your mark sheet. It has to be the entire mark sheet showing all the courses with the grades and everything mentioned in it. Basically, like other countries, you don't need a TOEFL or IELTS here. But if your medium of instruction was not English for your bachelor's, then you will have to take this TOEFL or IELTS score. And they don't recommend you to get a very high score or anything. You should have passed TOEFL with a basic score. But if you've done your bachelor's in English medium college, then your university certificate, which is printed in English, is more than sufficient. You don't have to submit any more English proficiency certificates. So that's the basic documents you need to submit. So the application process kind of starts like every year in like October to November. That's when the application starts for the next fall. So fall here is August, September. So the university will start in August, September next year, and you apply the previous year, October or November. So you apply the different universities and you prioritize them based on your priority. Like you give rankings for each university. If you say, for example, in Chalmers you have electric power engineering as your first priority, you give that first priority, and you have another course, say mechanical engineering, as your second priority. It will be given in priority. And one thing to keep in mind is when your final results are out, if you've given some university and some course as your first preference, that will be, if that is not selected, then it goes to second. Otherwise, if you get in the first course, then all other courses are rejected off automatically. So you need to keep in mind when you prioritize which one you want, because that should be your major goal, and you'll end up there most probably. So that's the basic. It's quite simple, and you don't have to go through any external help for it. No need of going through any counselors or agencies or anything. It's very simple, and if you do it properly, it's the most simple process actually to get into university.
So for students coming to study in Sweden, how do you think are the part-time opportunities, and how do you think that would affect their studies?
So when it comes to part-time options, there are a lot of part-time options in Sweden. Like you can do basically, it's called as dishwasher in restaurants. So you can go as a dishwashing help. You don't have to physically wash, it's a machine, you just need to operate it. So you can do that kind of job, or any restaurant service, like service in the restaurants. And then you have newspaper service, so where you can deliver newspapers. Like it's sometimes like 2 days in a week or 3 days in a week, something like that. And then you have this food delivery, which is quite common with students now here. So it's you can deliver food, but they have like a shift, like you are supposed to work for 6 to 7 hours a day, and then you need to plan that shift and you have to work it, and then you get money. You get a decent amount of money, but to keep in mind that if you've taken some hectic course or something which is like more time demanding, then this could turn out to be a little disadvantageous for you. Because when you're coming from India, the way of study is completely different, and it takes some time to get used to how it is going in here. So if you've taken something very strict course, I would recommend that you look for some time, you see that you are comfortable with the course, everything goes well, then you can think about the part-time options, and you can surely earn money. But then you need to be able to manage the time between your work and your study, because it will be a hectic day every day. It's going to be hectic. So you need to plan basically. It's possible. People who are dedicated can do everything.
Okay, that's great. How's job placement after studies?
Okay, so when it comes to job placement, it's not very simple, I would say, but it's not that difficult also. You can try to get a job if you've done really well during your studies, and it also depends on the course you've taken, because some courses have quite easy options and some don't. Like some you have to struggle a little bit and some you can easily get. For example, if you take something related to electrical or system controls, it's much more simpler because there's a lot of demand right now because of the electrification in the automotive industry and stuff. But the other courses also do get jobs. It's just that you need to apply in the right place. And the basic difference is that in India, when you do your bachelor's, you have something called campus placement. In Sweden, you don't have that. So the way you can get a university is only by trying to apply to their website, to a company directly on their websites. So here what happens is every university has some events where all the different companies come with their different opportunities they have. They will just talk in general and they will say, okay, we do this in this company and you have these kind of opportunities. But then the job, when it comes, when you apply, you need to go to their website and see what are the open positions available. So you try to apply for the open positions and try to match up with what requirements they ask for and stuff. But another easier way to try to get a job is if you manage to get a thesis in that company. For example, let's say you get a thesis in Volvo Cars. They prefer the thesis student to become an employee later on. So your focus should be to do a thesis in a company rather than trying to do it inside a university. Because there is two options. You can always do thesis inside the university, which is simpler. You do under some professor and then it just goes on and it's fine. But then you can do it under a company where you get some stipend as well. You get paid during the thesis time. You do the thesis for 6 months and you get a decent salary for it as well once you finish it. And then if you've done really well during the thesis, they are constantly going to monitor you. And if they feel you're really good, they will actually hire you directly as an employee. But then if that is not an option, the next option is to go through a consultant firm. So once you finish your master's, you have like a 1-year job search visa, where you're completely allowed to go around, search for jobs in different parts of Sweden or anywhere in Schengen or anything, any country as well within the Schengen visa. So when you keep doing that, in Sweden, you can apply to consultant firms. Like consultant firms have tie-up with a lot of companies. So you send them your CV and profile, they will look into it. If they feel that they can find something interesting for you, they will reach out to you and they will ask you to fill the CV in their format and stuff, and then you just give it to them. And then they will apply to the company. And then you will be called for interviews, like different rounds. You will at least have 2 to 3 rounds. But nothing to worry, they're not going to ask anything technical. The interviews in Sweden are mostly HR and general, where they like to know what kind of a person you are, like what your interests are and how you will adapt to the work conditions. So it's not that difficult. But again, I would still stress on the point that it depends on the course you've taken. So if it's a demanding course, you will get jobs. The thing is, you need to see the course, you need to look at the market also before you jump in, because it's a lot of investment you will do.
So Biju, apart from fees, what is the monthly average expense for a student in Sweden?
So more than the monthly average expense is, I could say, like somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 Swedish crowns. But that, if you see, out of that, at least 80% will be your house rent. So which you will actually decide even before coming here. So when you finish your application process and once you've got selected into the university, you apply for a residence here. It's more like a student accommodation. So you already applied when you're in India, and then you have a choice to see the prices of each university, what the accommodation, how much it's going to be per month. So based on that, you can have an assessment how much it's going to be. If you get a house, like for example, the least expensive ones are like 3,500 crowns, I believe. So if you choose something like that, then that's the basic, which will go every month from your pocket. So that's going to be one major expense every month. And then above that, it's going to be your transportation, which is like 450 crowns for students. You can take the West Traffic Pass and you can go by the tram, or you can choose to bicycle if your accommodation is close to the university. It depends where you get it. And then your next expense is going to be your food. So if you, like, what I did was when I stayed with some of my roommates, so all of us cooked together. So we shared the amount for buying the raw materials and stuff. So we bought something in common and then it's sharing. So it's not going to be that expensive. It comes like 1,000 crowns to 1,500 crowns, I would say. Depends on how good you are in managing that cost, because that's the next cost which will take up your cost per year. So basically it's the food, and then if you plan to eat out and stuff, that will be some expense. But then in universities, you have some lunch seminars and stuff where you can try to take that time and then get rid of that lunch expense there. So those are the options, and they're not it's like how you manage it. The major, like I said, the expense is the accommodation, and that you need to be wise to choose the good accommodation, but with not a very expensive one as well. You increase that, then your monthly expense will increase.
Yes, Biju. So, since you mentioned about accommodation, my viewers would want to know whether the accommodation will be provided by the university or should you look for it elsewhere? And how does it work for students who bring their family along as dependents?
So you have a fair point here. So I would say that here the university actually helps you in getting the accommodation. So there is something called a student post charter, which means student accommodation. So the university will send you some certain links where you can log in, and then you create an account there, and then you choose the different kinds of accommodations available, and then you select it. But to be very clear here is that it's limited. So it's like first come first serve, and you need to be in a hurry to get it. So you have to kind of do it in a hurry. You should apply it straight away. You should not wait, because if you wait, somebody else will get the accommodation and finally you will end up not getting. If you don't get an accommodation, you can still come here and get something, but it's going to be an expensive offer. It's not going to be that simple. And then when it comes to bringing a family or dependent with you, it's possible, because some accommodations here, you have like two different kinds of accommodations. One is a student house where you live with different other peoples, like you'll have a room alone, and then you'll have a shared kitchen, shared washroom, and everything else is common space shared. And you have something called studio apartment, which is like you have one room for yourself. It has an inbuilt washroom, and you have a kitchen for yourself, and you have a common space where you can have your beds and stuff. In those kind of accommodations, you can actually easily live with your dependent. It's much easier. But if you want to go through the legal process of getting informing them I'm coming 2 people, then you will have different procedures. You will have to apply for a bigger house. It might end up a little expensive, but I would say going for a studio apartment is the best. It's good enough for 2 people to stay. If you're a 2 people, or if you come with maybe a kid as well, you can still manage in that accommodation, because you have your private washroom and you have your private kitchen, so you don't have to depend on a common resource. So I would say that is the easiest option, and they are not that expensive since it's through the student housing. So that's the quick way. If you don't end up getting here, then you will probably have to go around searching outside. Like you have different websites and other stuff you can search for houses, like Boplats and a lot of other things, but then they end up a little expensive and you don't get a student concession on that. So the main aim is to try to get a student accommodation and try to apply as early as possible, as soon as it opens.
Great. Another question is, are the classes online or go to university in this situation?
I think it's a worry for everyone since Corona is going on. I would say currently in Chalmers, the situation is that they have the courses online right now, but you're allowed to go to universities. If you have some labs, you can go to universities. And if you even want to work from the university, because you have a lot of study rooms which you can just go and sit and you can do a lot of study. So those kind of things you can actually use. So you don't have any restrictions saying that you're not supposed to come to the university. You can come anytime you want. But majority of the courses right now, because of Corona, is online. But soon we expect it to go offline as well, where you can get the actual campus experience.
Thank you very much for your time, Biju. Your answers will be very beneficial for my viewers, and I wish you good luck.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Linda.